Good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome to an extremely sunny Hamilton. I hope you are all well. Listen, just before I introduce Ash, in fact, Ash, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I have to say, I'm loving your new digs. Very nice.
Yeah, is that the nicest intro you've ever got in your life?
Yes, it is absolutely very set the scene for me nicely. I hope I make the most of it.
I could have built it up. The Supremo from Edinburgh, the fountain of knowledge joining us today is Ash. Ash, how are you? I could have done that,
See,
right?
if you did that, you're just going to disappoint people. Better not to set expectations too high. So that introduction was probably very apt for me, I'm afraid.
Yes, there we go. Well, that'll do. That'll do. By the way, I hope the sun goes away soon. Sorry, folks, for all you sun worshippers out there. But I've been told I cannot reorganise the room because of the way that it's been painted. So I have to stay like this, apparently. But the reason that we're late today, I know I've always got an excuse, blah, blah, blah. 2 minutes before we started, my daughter fell off her bed and I think she might have broke her arm. So basically, I says to her, give it half an hour and if it's still bad, let me know so I can do the show, Ash, because I'm just that kind of dad.
That's dedication for you. I'm sure the listeners appreciate that. That's definitely dedication.
Yes. See, that goes out to all our channel members. You come clearly before my daughter. So love it up. Ash, how are you? I've got to ask before we get started, right? How is it with the first weekend we're getting into with no Rangers?
So when we spoke about it last weekend, I was getting quite excited, and I was thinking, actually, it's been such a bad season. I'm glad to see the end of it, but now I'm kind of missing Rangers already, and I'm missing any announcements that's getting me excited. I kind of hoped we'd have a new manager by now, but it's not happened. In saying that, there's still plenty of football to be excited about. We've got Serie A title decider tonight, so I will definitely be tuning in for that. And then we've got the Championship playoff tomorrow, which is the only game I'll be watching tomorrow, FYI. There's nothing happening in Scotland that is of any interest to me in terms of football tomorrow. So,
I've
yes, there's
no
a
idea
bit
what
to
you're
keep me
talking
going.
about.
There's a small matter of a tiny little cup that somebody's going to win that
The cup that
it's
nobody
like,
cares about unless you're in the
aye,
final.
it's the worst of both worlds. Like, if there's two teams I didn't want to win a trophy, it's probably those two, and it's that one of them are going to win it. And either way, it's going to be painful. But I suppose I have a preference on the red rather than the green if I had to pick.
Yes, and at least, wait a minute, at least we can't drop 3 points this weekend, which is always a bonus. Which is always a bonus. Can I just say for people, right? Geordie's saying that she can wait until after the rabble. Multiple man, that's a disgrace. Go get her checked. Get that way into the Ducking Hospital. It will still be broken half an hour. Can I just say that my missus is home and she's looking after the Wayne, and if needs be, she will go first and I will follow after.
Fair
Don't
to say you've
panic.
got
The
quite an
Wayne is
eclectic mix of views on that, Martin, there. You've got some that are supportive of your position and some that are quite critical, so that's a good balance.
yes, yes. Imagine being critical of a man at his work. That's shocking. That just shows you the society that we live in now. I think that's what that does. Get the physio's magic sponge out. She'll be grand. Yeah. I
Oh.
suppose actually, I used to watch every league. I used to watch the Dutch league, the English league, the Italian league, the Spanish league. When I was younger, Ash, I watched them all.
Mm,
Nowadays, I find myself, if I'm in on a Sunday or whatever and Rangers aren't playing, I'll maybe flick on an English game.
yeah.
But I can only get so far into it before I get bored and then I'm on my phone and I'm going upstairs to do a bit of work or whatever. This is actually, I suppose, the time of year when it benefits you to like more than just the Scottish league.
Yeah, because I mean, not being rude, I don't imagine many people watch the Scottish game for the excitement and the quality. You know, we watch it because we love Rangers, and the other fans watch it because they love their team. But I'm a bit like you. I don't always have time to watch as many games as I like to. But the likes of Serie A, that's obviously been very exciting this season. The Eredivisie, the Dutch league as well, last weekend went down to the final game where Ajax had completely choked and PSV won it on the last day. So I used to watch a lot of English football, but I find it a bit boring now, whereas I find some of the European leagues are a bit more interesting. So I'm a bit like you. If I'm watching English games, I'm doing something else at the same time. If there's a decent Italian game or Spanish game, then I'll try and flick it on. And I just want to highlight as well, apologies, folks, you're right. It was remiss of me not to mention the Scottish Cup final for the women's team on Sunday. So
Yes.
hopefully, might try and get to that if I can, and hopefully we can put last weekend to bed because that was having watched that was pretty painful. Losing the league on the last day to Hibs. So let's hope we can end the season on a high.
I mean, yeah, I watched the first half of that, and I didn't watch the second because I knew it was coming. You could see it coming a mile away. They just weren't up. It was really poor. The women's show is on Monday night, by the way, for those because after the cup final. But Monday we're taking a slight break, and I say slight break because there will be no afternoon rabble, no Monday night rabble, unless we get some sort of announcement. Normally, when I book a day off, Rangers tend to go, nah, Martin, nah. We're not going to give you any warning. And at like 9:30 at night, we're just going to announce something. But we will have the watch along for members for the second leg of the Premiership playoff. We've done that last night, 2.5 hours of a Q&A, it turned out to be. So we're doing that on Monday night for the members. And we've got the women's show as well. Right. Ash, shall we talk a wee bit of Rangers? In fact, before we do, you said something there that reminded me of something. Is football now becoming boring? Because you mentioned that word a few times. Erin, look, it's the end of the season. We can have this discussion, I suppose. The English football, especially, a lot of people just blaming Pep as if it's his fault that everybody's copied him, right? Is football becoming predictable and boring?
So I know you're right. It's kind of in vogue to blame Guardiola. But I do have to say, even as Barca teams back in, I can't remember when it was they were dominant. It would have been the early 2010s, was it? Would that be right? Um, like I did eventually get a bit bored of the pass, kind of pass to death. Now, some of their football was great, but I did, as I say, I quite like something a bit more exciting and a bit more pacey than that, I feel like. And I would say the English league now is a wee bit robotic. Like they've almost kind of taken the creative freedom out of some of the flair players. Everything seems much more tactical, and players are, I think, at times overloaded with instruction. So you kind of don't get to see their natural game. I don't think that's as bad on the continent as it is in British football. But like you, as I mentioned earlier, I find that I switch off more watching games now more than I ever did. And I'm on my phone scrolling through X, or I'm on my laptop doing other things. So the games obviously aren't as exciting as they used to be because I wouldn't have done that.
And this is a crazy thought. Is there too much football now?
I think it's easier than ever to access games on TV. I think obviously the level of games is not that changed that much, apart from obviously the Europa League and Champions League. They've extended the fixture slightly, but I think there's so much access now that people can easily go and watch games from all around the world. So yeah, maybe the kind of the specialness of some of these games is gone away a little bit. And I think as well things like playing the FA Cup final the weekend before the end of the season, the
Yeah.
tradition, like that's not right. And the Europa League on a Wednesday night, why? Champions League on a Saturday night, why? Yeah, I think TV's got too big a say now in how we consume our football.
Yeah, the FA Cup was supposed to be the be all and end all final. That was to close off the English season, was the FA
Yeah,
Cup final. I don't even think the SFA have done that yet, but no doubt they will. They will follow
there's
suit. They always try and copy everything England done if they can afford that. But listen, let's talk Rangers, shall we? It has been reported, and I don't think this is a massive shock or surprise to anybody, that Nedim Bajrami will more than likely be leaving the football club. Ash, two clubs, no idea who they are. Two clubs apparently showing interest. A, is it a surprise to you that with his form, not just for club but also for country, that anybody is showing an interest in Bayrami? And B, what's went wrong?
If you take A first, no, I'm not surprised because before Bajrami came here, he'd played in Serie A for I think it was almost 100 appearances. Very established international footballer, had performed well at some of the major international tournaments. So on paper, when he came in, to be honest, I was quite excited. Obviously, I think he and Cantwell, it was pretty much a straight swap in the sense Cantwell went out the door, and within hours we'd signed Bajrami on the last day of the season. So I think that I could see the sense in why we'd signed him. Um, and I do have some sympathy with him because I really don't think we've helped him at all be successful. The reason we signed him is because he'd performed well as a number 10, sort of centrally through the pitch. And then almost immediately when he comes in, we throw him out onto the left side. Um, and listen, the left side's been a huge problem for us all season. We've had Igaman out there, we've had Hadji out there. And they put Bajrami out there, and I think all of them have suffered because it just isn't their natural position. They don't have the skill set to be effective in that role. So I think with Bajrami, yes, he's not hit the heights, but there's a couple of things. One, it's not his fault that £3.5 million for us is a huge investment. So it means when you come in, you've got to hit the ground running there and then. We need assists, we need goals. And also, I think we've not given him a chance to have a run of games and play through the bad form in his central position. So I think Rangers have to take quite a bit of the blame for why it's not worked out. And if he goes, I would not be surprised if he goes on to have a successful second part of his career. Oh, you're on mute, Martin.
Oh, that's bad behaviour. That's bad behaviour.
Another yellow card. There's a
Yes,
couple you've had.
I know, by the way, it's because my keyboard's now over here, and if I turn like this, you can see my nose, and I don't like it. Anyway, yes and no, because I would agree if it wasn't for the fact that his international form took a nosedive as well, because we spoke to the guy for Albanian football just before he signed or as he was signing. He was always one of the first names in the team sheet for Albania. He always performed well for them, whether he was playing through the middle or on the left. And then his forums just took a massive dive. Uh, Did you see enough from him when he first came in to think, well, if we get the right coach, if we get the right manager, that he could actually do a job for us? Or do you think it is a case, as most of our comments would probably attest to, get him out as quickly as possible? Just get him gone.
I mean, with regards to his international form, I do get that point, but I would also argue if you're having a poor run club level and you're not playing in your natural position, your confidence is going to be shot. So I kind of get that, it's likely that would then transition into your international career as well. In terms of how he started, I thought actually the first few performances he did okay. I thought technically he looked quite good. I thought he took the ball in tight positions and he was always looking up, trying to move the ball forward, which from central positions we've lacked. But as I say, I think playing out on the wing didn't help him. And again, you've got to be honest as well. He's not hit the heights we expected, but he is a key part of why we've turned the tide in the Old Firm fixtures. He's been such a key part of that. He has nullified McGregor almost completely. Taking away space and also giving him the opportunity to go forward and give McGregor something to think about the other way. So yes, he's not had a good season, but there have been moments where you thought there's a player in there. But if we don't have the right coaching staff, we don't have a consistent, we don't consistently play him where he wants to play. We have managerial changes, etc. It's probably not a shock that he's not thrived, really.
Mhm. Well, I think Donald might be at it. The Balkan Messi must not leave. I think Donald's slightly at it there.
Or he's
But yeah,
Bajrami, or he's Bajrami signed in as Chukter Donald. That could
it
also be.
could if Bajrami is a member, then
Thank you.
send me a message. Send me a message, and we'll have a wee conversation off camera.
Get him live. What's going wrong? What's gone wrong?
Yes, what's going wrong? Yeah, okay, it's a strange one, but we Haji Balogun, and who was the other one? Who was the other player that left?
Lawrence.
Haji. How could I forget? Haji leaving, Bayrami possibly leaving. I mean, that's a good chunk of wages off the wage bill, Ash.
It is, and hopefully you want the club to reinvest that into players that come in and have more of an impact. The other thing I suppose we've got to be mindful of is it depends who is going to be the manager and what kind of tactical style they want to play. Because number 10s for some teams are a key part of how they play, and for others it doesn't exist. They'd rather have that extra body in the middle of the park. So for me, you might want to wait till the new manager's appointed before you sanction that deal. However, if we can recuperate the money we spent on him based on the fact he'll be on decent wages, Thelwell might just make the decision to get rid, clean house, and use that money to give to the new manager to say, right, how are we going to rebuild the squad?
Yeah, multiple man. Haji, Lawrence, and Bayrami. How on earth would we replace such blistering pace? And Lawrence as well. I forgot about Lawrence. Do you know what? That's a fair point. See, when you look at all those players, there's no pace in that whatsoever.
There isn't, and if we're being honest, I feel like the only two players, and this is what worries me a bit about the loss of Balogun. I know that he's been injured and he's older, but him and Jefte really, from memory, are the only two players that can pick up a bit of speed. Otherwise, we're pretty slow and cumbersome across the pitch. There's no one else that can really shift and help on the counter. So I think a bit of athleticism is definitely an area that they're going to have to try and target this season to give us a chance in games.
And I've got to ask you this, Ash. Right? It was a bit tongue in cheek, to be honest, but it does seem to be. It won't go away, right? I think that's the best way I can describe it. It won't go away. Do you remember Gary? If Gerrard comes in, any chance Vardy comes in due to Gerrard's influence? Is Jamie Vardy somebody? I mean, look, he's scored 200 goals in England. Or was it for Leicester? He scored. I don't know. He scored a lot
Leicester,
of
yeah,
goals.
yeah.
Scored a lot of goals. He's 38 years old. He's going to be on at Rangers a lot of money. He'll be I would imagine the highest paid player by a considerable distance. You watch a lot of English football. Was Vardy somebody you would have at a football club?
If the financials were right, 100%. 100%. I think he played in a really poor Leicester team. He's not had the greatest of seasons, but he still scored goals for Leicester. I still, and he does have pace, even though he's older. He can, he still offers that option up front. And I think he could have a bit of the same sort of influence the likes of Defoe had. By no metric should have been anywhere near Rangers, and not disrespectful to us, but just the other options he would have had on the table. But he wanted to come and he wanted to play for Gerrard. And I think that if there was ever a chance Vardy would come, it would be under the influence of the likes of Gerrard. I think without that, we don't have a chance, because I actually think he might get another gig in the Premiership. But if the deal
I
was
think he
right,
could.
I would absolutely take him.
You talk about no pace in the team. Even at 38, he's probably faster than most, if not all, the players on our team at 38 years old.
100%, and he can finish. He is a very, very good finisher, and the stats tell you that. Not just obviously at Leicester, but even before that. So no, I would take. I think it's pie in the sky, but if the option was there and it wasn't going to kill the wage structure, he would do a job for us.
Did you manage to catch any of last night's game, Livy Ross County?
Bits of it. I saw the penalty that was given at the end, and the full time scenes, which were a bit mental. So yeah, no, I think now County probably you'd imagine are favourites to win the tie up in Dingwall.
Well, I was going to ask if you didn't watch the full game. Robbie Fraser started at left back for Livingston. Didn't really do much wrong, to be fair,
Mhm.
but didn't really catch the eye either, Ash.
No, and I think Robbie Fraser, is at an age now where if it was going to work for him at Rangers, it probably would have. And I think the issue you'd have now is if you bring him back, he's not. I don't think Jefte should be number one next season. I think Jefte's going to develop into a good player for us, but I think he could do with not being playing every game. I think he could do with learning a bit on the sidelines. You're not going to play Robbie. Robbie Fraser's going to come in and be number three potentially, and he's at a stage of his career where he needs to go and play. So I think that he's one that if Livy get up, he might stay, and if he doesn't, he might end up back in the Championship.
Yeah, yeah. It was. It was one of the main reasons I wanted to watch that game last night. Especially as soon as I seen that Robbie Fraser was starting, because this was. I think these two games are an opportunity for Robbie to show
Mm.
somebody at Rangers. Look, this is what I've got. This is what I can do. This is against, albeit they finished 11th, a Premiership team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm maybe just being too harsh. I just don't think he stood out enough, Ash. To be honest.
No, I think he's had a decent season, but he's had a decent season in the Championship. So no, I would say that he would have to have done something pretty spectacular for it to come back and have a realistic chance of being in the first team squad next year. But either way, I hope he goes on and has a decent career wherever he ends up.
And just finally on that game last night, you mentioned it there. Are we starting to see a pattern of fan behaviour now that is exceeding the limits? I've always been one who said I don't care what team it is, I don't care what fan you're, I don't care who you support, whatever. As soon as you throw stuff onto a pitch, right? For me, it's game over. You're banned for life. Spitting, Ash, I don't think there's many things you can do worse in terms of that football environment than spitting on somebody.
Nah, it's the lowest of the low, and I think that guy's going to be in serious bother. I mean, I saw the police clambering over the boards to try and get some. Yeah, I mean, there's been some pretty unsavoury scenes. We've been part of that sadly with the bottle at Ibrox, but we've also had chairs chucked that have hit, Aberdeen fans throwing a chair, which I don't know whether that might keep that guy out the final tomorrow, because it looked like quite a bad facial injury he ended up with. So the disappointing thing is 99% of fans are sensible, and yeah, you might say a few things during the game and you might, shout and get a bit upset, but it's just a game of football, and nobody should be physically injured, etc. What it does is it probably, we've had this conversation around, can we have drinks, football. I mean, all this stuff is just cannon fodder for the likes of the SNP, who obviously don't want us to go back down that road. And it means that we're not going to be having that discussion around alcohol in stadiums for a long time, because some people sadly can't be trusted.
No, no. And listen, it's not my argument. 'Cause I personally think that you'd probably make it would be better if we had alcohol inside stadiums, so that people weren't going to the pub 3 hours before a game and getting absolutely tanked up, and then leaving games at half time because they want to go to the pub. I think it would be much better in general if there was football in stadiums. I just think it would be better. But I don't suppose, can you really blame authorities? When, in Scotland we've had this persona for years and years and years. It's, oh, you go up to Scotland, they're all drinking. It's a big, massive drinking culture, which I don't think it is anymore. I think in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, there's been a massive switch towards like personal health. Not me, right? But there's been a massive switch towards personal health, going to the gym, keeping yourself right. I don't think we are still that same society of, oh, I've got to have a chaser with my pint of lager. I don't think we're like that anymore. But could you blame the powers that be for looking at the incidents that we've seen towards the end of the season and going, don't want to introduce alcohol into that?
No, I think that's the problem, is that, as I say, they were minded not to do that anyway, and all of this is just reaffirms to them that we can't be trusted to do that. And it's a shame, because you can get alcohol inside the stadium, but you've got to spend a lot of money to get into the lounges to do it. In Scottish football, obviously, there's a bit of an economic crisis. That would bring in a fair bit of revenue if you could sell, the odd pint or whatever at the game. But no, I totally agree. I mean, people who drink going to games are going to drink regardless of what you do, but you might have negated some of the binge drinking on the way to the stadium if you could, go in early with your pals, have a couple of drinks while you're waiting for the game to kick off. But I think we're years and years away from that now.
Probably. I do think so. Because I went to the Rangers Dortmund game in Germany. Amazing. Absolutely amazing inside the stadium. Go and get yourself a drink, go and get yourself something nice to eat. Much, much better all round service, and it's just like years ahead of what we've got in Scotland. It just really is. Plus, you get free train travel with your
Yeah.
purchase ticket in Germany, and it's cheaper, and they just do it so much better. But probably like most countries, to be honest,
And,
do it so much
yeah,
better than us.
I don't want to take it too off piece, but I think you're right. I do think we're treated a bit as second class citizens when you think about how you're, manhandled on the way to games, and the transport after games, etc., is a bit of a shambles. And even things like food, which I know is not the biggest problem, but the stuff that you get served at football stadiums in this country is a wee bit embarrassing. Like, there's no, there's not really any option that's a healthier option. So I know that, again, we're kind of going into the weeds now, but I do think that they could kind of upgrade the fan experience, and you might end up with a few more people coming north to enjoy the games, because it's not the best experience if you're not a massive fan of one of the clubs just now.
And hopefully the Americans coming in do that. That would be nice. Right,
Hot dogs all
Josh
around.
Windass. Josh Windass.
Ah,
The man who is clearly right up there in Mensa, was on Open Goal, and he had a few choice words for Rangers supporters, Ash, regarding
mm.
James Tavernier, saying that, he's been the best right back in Scotland for X amount of years, but he's consistently and constantly disrespected. Is he right?
So I'd hoped I'd never have to hear
I,
or
I know
think about
that's I
Josh
know
Windass.
that's a difficult
Okay.
difficult question, Ash. Is Josh Windass right?
It kills me. Um, I would say that Tav will be remembered more fondly in the future than perhaps he's thought about at the moment. And that's just because he has sadly been involved with a period that everyone would really, apart from the odd success, most people, Rangers fans, would want to forget about. And as the captain, he is in the spotlight. And he has sadly been part of teams that have choked at certain points of the season. Now, if you look at his stats, and I know this is a conversation we've had before, but if you look at his stats and you look at the history books in terms of what he's given to the club, there is no doubt that he's been value for money over and over and over again. And I feel a little bit sad for him that the club and the managers haven't done a better job of surrounding him with talent that would have allowed his stats to mean something at the end of the season in terms of big shiny trophies. So disrespected is a bit difficult. I think we're right to be upset, and I think we're right to point the finger and say, why do we keep choking in the same moments at the same times? And he has to take a little bit of responsibility for that. But I would agree that he's judged more harshly now than I think he will in the future. I think history will be kind to how we see Tav, but at the moment, most people, I imagine, are happy if he moves on in the summer.
Yeah, and look, Ian Thompson here's saying, Windass is correct, but Tav should not be captain. Yes, and I must admit, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I do tend to agree with Josh Windass. And by the way, Windass looked a wee bit angry about it, as if he maybe holds a wee bit of a grudge. I do, and one thing, I think it was him that mentioned it, or it might have been somebody else who was talking about it that mentioned it. Or, if Tav doesn't come out and do a post-match presser after Rangers lose, he gets disrespected off his support and he gets looked down at, blah, blah, blah. Have we just looked for a reason to have a go at Tav? Is that all it is? Because he's been here probably the longest. He's been with us for the championship. But I think we've got to remember this guy cost us just under $250,000 as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think you're right, but I think the issue has been is that as his performances have dipped going forwards, which is really the main thing he offered the team, his defensive frailties and weaknesses have just become more and more obvious, and it's hard to then counter. But if you're not offering something going one way and you're a negative going the other, then people are going to get on your back. And I mean, even if you think like the Old Firm game recently, where really Celtic should have won it late on because he gives the ball away, and he done that same thing at Parkhead a few years ago, the exact same thing. So it doesn't seem as though yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from singing the blues. He does get blamed for everything, but some of it he's brought on himself, and some of it I think is just unfairly he's been associated with a period of failure at the club. And as captain, as I say, the spotlight's on you and everybody's looking at you.
yeah, yeah. I suppose it is. I suppose it is. Finally, then, I don't know. This is good news for me, right? And
Mm.
by the way, when we were having that conversation there about alcohol and football grounds, I was about to make a comment about rugby, but then I remembered I've got a rugby top on, so it would maybe seem a little bit hypocritical. But yeah, let's move on to the final part of the agenda. Jefte has come out and said it's a dream to play for Rangers. He is more than happy at Ibrox. That fills me with happiness, right? Because I'm a big fan of Jefte, Ash. I can see the potential. And again, I'll repeat myself. What do I know? Just my opinion, right? But I see the potential that I do think he has to be an extremely good fullback for us. And I'm glad he's happy here.
Yeah, I think he's got all the attributes to be successful. I think he's got to clean up a lot of the defensive side of his game. But he is still very young. I don't think he's got much professional experience under his belt. I think this will be one of the first few seasons that he's played a full season. And again, I think as we've talked about before, I don't think the structure off the pitch has been particularly helpful to help him kind of get used to Scottish football and get comfortable in that environment. Hopefully, if we get a new coaching staff in, they can work with him on the side of his game that needs a little bit of work. But he's got all of the kind of natural tools. He's athletic. He's got a bit of pace about him. When he gets in the final third, he can put a cross into the box and cause problems. So he's got kind of all the technical qualities that if somebody can coach him, he has to, he can be a real asset for us and also make us a decent whack of money when he moves on. I just hope next season that we bring a left back in and we kind of interchange him and Jefte. Jefte still gets to play some first team football, but maybe gets to learn behind someone who's a bit more experienced. And I think he'll be better for doing that.
What do you think of the comment? And this isn't just for the sniper, right? This is a comment that we've seen 1,000 times. Love Jefte, but he should be playing left wing. Um, Again, I don't think his final ball is there yet for him to play left wing. However, he does. The one thing we did notice, and what springs to mind is Man U at Old Trafford. He does lose the man over his shoulder quite a lot when he's defending, and it's caused us a few goals this season, Ash. But what do
Yeah.
you make of the argument that he should be played left wing rather than left back?
I mean, I see the validity of it. I think from memory, we tried that in a couple of European games with Ridvan. Although I think Ridvan, they kind of interchange, but I think Ridvan was the one that was a bit further forward. So no, I can see the thinking behind it. Maybe it's one of these things that we trial in pre-season. And with regards to his final ball, I mean, that ball across for Dessers against, I think it was Dundee United or Aberdeen, I can't remember, the kind of games all merged into one, but that was on the money. And that was actually what he was doing at the start of the season. And then for some reason, he seemed to lose his confidence going forward, and wanted to cut inside or pass the ball inside rather than take the man on. So no, I wouldn't be adverse to seeing it. Let's try it out. But I do think he probably sees himself as a left back. And that ball over the shoulder, that's a concentration thing, that's a maturity thing. That can be coached. If somebody spends enough time on it, that's something that's fixable. And you add that to his kind of natural kind of qualities. As I say, I think he can be a good player for us.
So there, I think he can be a very, very good player for us. Right, folks, we are back tonight at 7:30 for your Friday night rabble. Hopefully, it's not a carbon copy of the afternoon rabble. I will certainly be looking up for stuff to talk about. And then at 9 p.m. tonight for our members, the Extreme Gaming Podcast is back, so the members can catch up on that. Ash, I'm sure you know all about the Extreme Gaming Podcast.
Just about know what a console looks like, but Trev obviously is the IT expert, so he keeps me right on all of the cool stuff that I'm missing out on.
Cool stuff.
He's on the chat, Martin. I've got to be nice.
Sorry, yeah, that
my season
extremely
ticket,
cool
buddy.
stuff.
Come on.
Yes, the amazing. It's an amazing show, folks. It's an amazing show. So listen, please help out the show by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you want to help the show out a little bit more, you can do so now by becoming a member. Links are in the description. Everything audio over on Patreon for the members. Everything video is on YouTube. So take your pick. Ash, thank you very much.
Have a great weekend, folks.
Yeah, well, I'm going to see Trev this weekend again, so I don't know how great it's going to be.
That sounds exciting. More computer work, is it? Again, a little bit of tweak.
Yes. He done that thing where he takes me out and he takes me up the lane and he goes, "Oh, there's our first seat," and I'm looking at it with my 17 stone, going, "Oh, that's very nice. Let's go. Come on." Don't no.
Well, it's better going up Arthur's seat than going up the loft. So I hear.
Well, it's a very, very small loft, I must say.
Oh, you've been up?
No, it's the only reason I survived because I couldn't fit in it.
Well, when you made it up and you made it down, I was going to say fair play. I don't know if that's happened before. Poor Trev. We're kidding, Trev.
Right. Yes, but we are kidding on Trev. Right, folks, go and enjoy the rest of your Friday afternoon. It is a bank holiday after all, which is why Ash is probably available to come on because it's a bank holiday. You're not working today, Ash?
No, I am. I'm going back to work after this, but I am off next week, so I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to that. Although the rain starts next week, so that's
Well,
brilliant.
you're off next week. That's good to know. That's handy to know.
Stitched myself right up there. Stitched myself right up.
Shouldn't have told me that. Right, folks,
Signal's
go enjoy
going,
the rest of your Friday. And we shall speak very, very soon.